To be fortunate enough to cut one of the largest, finest, rarest gemstones on the planet in my lifetime as a gem artist is something I will always be grateful for. Bahia is an optical clear rutile quartz sculpture that weighs over 450 pounds and is suspended from 2 3/16 inch steel cables like a giant hanging pendant. Bahia is now on permanent display at the Gemological Institute of America's International World Campus in California. How I was fortunate enough to be able to cut and carve this magnificent giant gemstone, along with how it came to finally hang in the lobby on the recognized school and museum, is the story I am about. Back in 1983, my good friend and co-creative colleague came to me asking if I would teach him how to cut a crystal. You might say at the time he was my very first apprentice, though I was still learning and honing this craft on my own at that time. Within a short period, we would become co-artists on an adventure neither of us could have done on our own at the time. Together, we created something completely unique and original within the gem and mineral world. As a co-partnership, we created completely outside the box for the times. A legacy was born when we came together to create as one. He was visiting a dealer we often got our quartz rough from and noticed this very large piece of optical quartz being used as a doorstop. Asking the dealer about the piece, his response was that no one knew what to do with it. It was an internally near flawless 62-pound piece of quartz with a matrix of clay earth on the surface hiding the clarity that lay within this stone. Up to this point, large clear quartz pieces like this would be cut down into optical sphere crystal balls or a classic four-sided obelisk like those found in Egypt and the Washington Monument. This was all that anyone knew what to do with these very large clear quartz pieces. He came back to tell me about this piece and that we had to do something with it. I had already been cutting stones for the last 7 years, and one thing I knew was that the larger the flat surface was on any gemstone, the exponentially harder it was to get an optical flat polish. Neither of us had an experience in faceting such a large piece. It was outside of the box for both of us. Being new at the time to gem cutting convinced me we should do this piece. Being somewhat experienced, my logic told me it could not be done. So much for thinking outside of the box. But his persistence kept insisting we should try. This is where the apprenticeship ended and we became co-artists and cutter, inventing a whole new field in large gemstone cutting around these mammoth quartz crystals. Eventually, I agreed to go along and figured we could eventually work out how to cut and polish the stone. We would eventually invent the techniques that would be recognized as megagems and started the revolution of large clear quartz standing generators that can now be seen in every metaphysical crystal stores around the world. The term generator is used in metaphysical circles to represent a quartz crystal with a defined termination tip on one or both ends that is used in meditation and healing purposes. Our very first completed Mega Gems project would become known as the Empress of Lemuria circa 1986. The Empress of Lemuria became the master model from which all other large quartz crystals were modeled. The Empress is the first of its kind in history. In its completed state, it weighs 42 pounds. It would go on to be exhibited in Moscow in the Furtzman Institute of Academy of Science. Lawrence and I worked in obscurity, constantly pushing the boundaries of a box that did not exist. It was exciting times, and we both could feel the exhilaration and knowledge we were birthing something totally new and imaginative. It would give rise to a whole new generation of natural quartz crystal that would be cut and polished with the respect of the angles and shape of the crystal's natural habit of quartz, thus preserving these ancient sentinels on our planet to be respected for what they are and held instead of being cut up into beads, sculptures, or small jewelry gemstones. Of course, these have their place, but up to this point, no one gave much respect to these giants of gemstones. Cutting them with total respect for the crystallography, large size and clarity would generate a whole new respect and love for the ancient earth giants. Much in the same way, we as humans need to save and preserve the giant redwood trees from the state of California. After the Empress, we continued down this path and cut the second large piece, known as Kai, a 98-pound clear optical quartz crystal in 1987. Each time a new, even larger crystal showed up at our door, we refined the tools and techniques. Each time we worked on these large pieces, we redefined and developed our own tools, equipment, and techniques to polish larger and larger flat optical surfaces. One of the laws of physics regarding polishing an optical surface is that the larger the flat surface, the longer exponentially it takes to get a polish. In other words, let's say a 5mm face on a quartz takes 30 minutes to get a water clear polish. Then a 10mm surface could take 3 to 4 times longer, not just double. So you can begin to imagine when Lawrence and I started to work on flat gemstone faces that could be as long as 1.2 meters in length. It could take days to get a water clear polish on just that one crystal face. As already mentioned, when I eventually went to Adar Oberstein on my first visit, I saw that our techniques of water clear and bright polished outshined anything that had been done ever in the 500 years of the historic village known for cutting the finest gemstones and sculptures. It was then I knew that working outside the box of conformity allows one to explore and experiment without being controlled or influenced by the tradition. I am grateful to this day that I was born and raised where this art was literally unknown. This has been a driving force to this day, to be able to create with total freedom and without restrictions. If they say it can't be done, then I'm even more motivated to do the impossible. I believe this is one of the main factors that created the opportunity for the doors to some of these Adar masters to be opened up to me back then. So, by 1988,